right at 1 o'clock. And we're going to go ahead and get started with this session of our leadership development series on creating engaging presentations. And we are really excited to have 3 extension agents with us this afternoon. We have Kirsten Conrad from Arlington, Alexandria, Ashley Appling from Culpeper, Madison, and Orange, and Ed Olson from Henry. I am recording this session, so this will be posted to our leadership development page after the fact if there's anything that you want to go back and rewatch if you find it really useful. And then we will post, I know I sent out 2 documents yesterday afternoon, and those will be posted in that section as well on our leadership development page. So without any further ado, go ahead and take it over.
Thank you, Kathleen. Just like Kathleen already said, we're going to be talking about engaging presentations. So we're going to start off with some getting to know you kind of information, how do you prepare a presentation, go through the details in that, talk about audiences a little bit, and then we're going to dive into templates that the State Master Gardener office provides for your use if you would like to. And then we will dive a little bit more into Zoom. So this is going to be overall presentations. And then towards, I know a lot of folks, including myself starting out, had problems using the Zoom presentations. You don't really get to interact as much with the audience. You don't get to see the audience, a very different dynamic. So we're going to talk about all those different topics today. Excuse me. So where do you start? So basically, have you been asked to give a presentation? Have you been voluntold to give a presentation? Have you volunteered to give a presentation? So we all have a different starting point. So you're keeping your goals in mind. What is the presentation about? Have you been told a topic that you're going to talk about? Do you get to pick a topic? Have they told you an overall theme? I know when our Master Gardeners give different, our bi-yearly seminars that we try to pick an overall theme for the presenters to fit into, and we ask them if they have presentations that can fit within that theme. So where are you starting at? What are you going to talk about in general? Then gathering information. So if it's a topic that you're passionate about and you know your audience is going to be passionate about, it's going to be a lot easier for you to dive into the details and perfect a presentation. Sometimes we're not thrown into that category though. Sometimes we're put in a box and we have to adapt to it. So we'll talk about that a little bit in the upcoming slides too. So creating an outline can be very helpful. Writing down what you're going to present, basically is telling them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. So we're gonna dive into a little bit more about what that quote right there means. You're also going to be analyzing for relevancy. Is this going to be what the audience wants? Or is this even going to be a value to the audience? So that is very important when you're putting together a presentation. And then selecting appropriate documents, supporting documents. So what's that basically mean? So that's all the stuff that's going into the body of your presentation. That's what's going to show that you really know what you know about the topic that you're talking about. So this could be quotes from different researchers. So scientifically based information is what you want to go towards. So university information. Something that has a basis that you can pull from. Maybe data, maybe you're doing a topic that is very data driven. So you're going to use different data supporting documents for that. And then tweaking it along the way. So this is even before you're even getting started. Making sure that you are comfortable giving the presentation in the time frame that's allowed. And then contingencies. Contingencies need to be planned in. What if an in-person presentation, you have a large group of people waiting? What if your speaker doesn't show up? So then you're going to have to scramble at the last minute. If you didn't have any contingencies in place, maybe have a backup presentation that you're comfortable giving. I know if we've had to do that in a number of the different seminars and other types of workshops I've worked with. So that's very important there. Maybe lunch doesn't show up on time. That's something that you don't always think about, but that's happened to me many times. Maybe the the presentations didn't run as long as you thought, so you're a little bit ahead of schedule. So planning in all those different kinds of contingencies and different plans going forward, keeping your eye on the ball, knowing where you're going is very important. So who is your audience? Why are they even interested in the topic that you might be talking about? So maybe asking the organizers about the demographics. Who do they think they're going to attract to this presentation? Then talking about what kind of group size are they expecting? In person, some people are very, very comfortable talking with large groups of people, and some people are more comfortable talking in a more intimate situation. I know my experience, as I've gained more experience, I am much more comfortable talking in front of larger groups. And then Zoom throws in a totally different thing into that, just like I mentioned. It throws in you're not even seeing the audience. That's a different dynamic altogether there. And then what has the organizer promised the attendees? That is very important. So what is the title the working title they are using to describe your presentation, and making sure that you are actually diving into what the audience has been promised. Then giving them your biographical information if it's required. I know some of y'all might have seen Master Gardener College. That was put on very well, I thought. I was a moderator for some of the sessions, and the titles worked great. The presenters had all the information they needed for the different topics they were talking about. All the background information about them was available. That's the organization right there, making sure everything is working correctly. And then what is the goal of the presentation? Are you informing someone? Are you trying to persuade someone? So that's where influence would come into play. Are you trying to change behavior? That'd be more influence-based, motivating someone to do a goal. So are you talking about like an environmental issue? Are you talking about a different water management issues on a particular demo garden, for example? Are you talking about putting in a rain garden? So there's different, are you telling people how to do it? Or are you trying to present a plan to get people to want to do it? So that's all important things to come into play. Maybe you're going to do both at the same time. So it just depends on the presentation as you go along. And knowing what you're going to talk about and why you're going to talk about it is very important. So a couple of rules for success, 3 rules to be exact. So knowing your subject, knowing if you're passionate about the subject, of course, it'll be a much easier topic to tackle. Believe in the message and your subject. So this is where if you get thrown into that square box and you're a round peg, trying to figure it out correctly. Practice, practice, practice. So a lot of people put a lot of time into preparing a presentation, but they don't actually practice for how much time they have to talk. So practicing is important. This helps you to fine tune the content, making sure that you pinpoint the important points in your presentation. While you're practicing, that's a good time to also figure out, are you going to memorize your presentation? Are you going to use notes? Are you going to use note cards? Are you going to use the notes section of slides, the different presenter views of the slideshow presentations? Are you going to read directly from a text, like a speech or something like that? A lot of people will do a combination of all of those. So you can one of the suggestions I found online was to memorize the first 10 or last 10 minutes of your presentation. So that runs very smoothly. And then in between, in the body part of your presentation, you could use notes for relating stories, other things such as that. And then if you have a very, very important quote that's going to really dive into what you're talking about, then you could read it directly just to make sure that you got it correct. So a lot of people use a combination. I know I do on occasion, and that is perfectly fine. Memorizing is fine. Using note cards is fine. Maybe you're in a situation where you're going to prepare a speech and talk about that directly. So just knowing and practice helps you to figure out what you want to do during that presentation. So diving into the concepts and ideas, we already talked about the outline a little bit. That's helping you build the frame that you're going to work from. So in general, you don't want any more than 5 bullet points per slide. More than that, the text becomes smaller, which we're going to talk about later. And it becomes harder to read. People can start becoming confused. People can become distracted by outside, even in an in-person presentation, people can be distracted. Maybe they'll look at their phone because it's too much to process. They're just not looking at what you want them to look at. Excuse me. So no more than one idea concept per slide. So that is important too. It just becomes way too confusing to most people when you're jumping back and forth between concepts and you're not really tying anything together. So having the information presented, you have your idea / concept, and you're telling them what you want to tell them. And then time. Lots of people always ask about timing with slides. So it just depends really on what you want to tell people. So you have a lot of text like we do on some of these slides. You could maybe take a little bit longer. Maybe you want to throw in a side story that can relate very, very well. Maybe you have something else you want to relate. So maybe you take a little bit more time on some slides. If you have pictures, you're just talking about the picture and you're going from slide to slide to slide. Don't go too fast, of course, but you can go a little bit quicker between slides because you're trying to get an overall picture. Picture, I should have used a different word, but you're using pictures as examples, so you might go a little bit faster. And you can time that out during practice, how long you're going to be on different topics or how long they'll take different topics. There's other methods of organizing. Some people like having a very structured method, just like we have on this slide. So 3-5-3 method to organizing. So you have your introduction, of course. This is where you're going to have your 3 to 5 ideas about what the whole presentation, the whole concept of the presentation is going to be about. This is what you're going to talk about. So we started this presentation off like that. You tell them why they're here, why you are talking about this presentation, and then what you hope they will take away from this. So that is your introduction. That is your starting point. So that from there, you're going into the body of the presentation. So you have all your different ideas that you mentioned in the introduction. 3 to 5 ideas, 3 to 5 bullet points again per slide. So you don't want it real cluttered. It's very important. Once you get through that body, you're getting into the summary. So this is the conclusion of the slide of your presentation. So you see the 3 to 5 ideas again. So you're recapping at this point. So you're telling them what we covered. You're telling them again why it was important. And this is what you're going to do about it. So maybe you're doing more persuasive presentation. You're going to get into more of them. This is what we are going to do. Or maybe you're going to muddle that through with questions afterwards, or maybe another meeting altogether. And then you ask for questions. So any questions? Do any of the audience members have questions? Questions can be very interesting because maybe sometimes you dive into deeper concepts even through the questions. So I really appreciate any kind of questions that come in. It helps you go into topics maybe you forgot and you had a very important thing to talk about. So questions, make sure to let people know that questions are fine and they can ask what they want to ask through the questions. And I know most Master Gardeners don't have a problem with that, but some people are more shy than others and they don't really like to ask questions. So I always welcome questions during presentations. And delivery does matter a lot. So you want to speak with conviction. You want to be able to draw the audience's attention to you. You don't want them distracted on their phone. You don't want them distracted on what's happening in the room, especially on Zoom. That becomes a very hard concept to keep their attention on their computer screen. Also sound confident. If you sound unsure, the audience members they're not going to believe you as much. They're going to become more distracted. And yeah, so that's where practice really comes in a lot. You want to be very confident on what you're talking about. Make sure you speak loudly, loud enough in your certain situation that you're in. If you have to use a microphone, use a microphone. You just want the message to be conveyed to the audience. Otherwise, if they can't hear you, especially on Zoom calls, they become very distracted and this becomes, yeah, it's just not good overall if you're not speaking loudly enough. Projecting your voice, this really matters on what the situation you're in too. Are you in a large auditorium? Are you in a smaller meeting place? Just make sure that your voice fills up that space and that everyone can hear you very clearly and doesn't have any issues with how you're talking. And then changing up your tone. If you have a monotone voice, you might have the last three rows of your class falling asleep. That does happen. So make sure you kind of change up your tone. You can do that with stories. You can do that with the quotes. You just change up how you're talking. So tone is very important also. And this all goes into your delivery. If you're engaging, people will be engaged with the presentation. And okay, Kirsten, I am passing the baton to you. Y'all are welcome to ask any questions if you want right now also. So.
Okay, so I too miss very much giving presentations in front of an audience. I depend very heavily on the cues that I get from the listeners, whether they're interested, whether they're falling asleep, whether they have, whether I'm hitting the mark, whether I am giving them what they came for. And those kinds of visual cues are very important. And as Ashley mentioned, it's hard to get those visual cues from a Zoom presentation. And I also want to say that when I present, I like to walk around the classroom. I want to not stand behind a podium. I know everybody has a different style, but I like to walk around. I like to look people in the eye. I like to connect with them to see whether or not whether they're getting what I'm trying to say. It allows me also to pick on people who are falling asleep. But you will have to take into account all your audience, your venue, your style, your preferred style of presentation, as well as the equipment that you have available to do it with as you decide what is the best way to present the material you want to present. You also have to take into account that your audience has multiple ways of viewing a presentation and taking in the information that you are trying to give them. There are some different kinds of learning styles. Kinesthetic learners are ones that learn by doing. They want to do something with their hands. They want to experience something outdoors. They want to see something. They want to pick something. They want to use a tool. These are the people that are going to fall asleep in a boring old lecture. An auditory learner is somebody who listens, who learns best by listening. And none of these, of course, you have visual learners, and visual learners see. They want to see a picture on a slideshow. They want to see a handout. They want to read and write what they are learning about so that they can finish out what they're learning. I know for me, I'm a visual learner. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I want to do stuff. I want to experience it. I want to see how somebody does it. I also want to copy down what I learn and take notes and reread those notes afterwards. From an auditory perspective, I also appreciate hearing the passion from speakers. So everybody is a mix of these different kinds of learning styles. And I'd like to show you a little video here before we move on to kind of hammer home this point about different kinds of learners. Thank you, Kathleen.
There are two sides to every presentation. You are speaking, but an audience is listening. If you want to give a great presentation, you need to know about people. The more you understand how people think and learn, hear, see, react, decide, the better able you will be to put together a presentation that informs, inspires, and motivates. So here are 5 things that great presenters know about people. Number 1, people learn best in 20-minute chunks. When I'm coaching and mentoring people on presentations, I tell them to go watch TED Talks. If you aren't familiar with TED Talks, you should check it out at TED.com. These are short talks by accomplished people in their fields. And interestingly, most TED Talks are 20 minutes long. I think that's one reason they're so effective. These same presentations stretched out to an hour might not be so brilliant. Maureen Murphy tested the idea that 20-minute presentations are the right amount of time. She had adults attend a 60-minute presentation and the same presentation broken up into 20-minute chunks. She wanted to see if there would be a difference in people's memory of the talk and also their reaction to the talk. When the presentation was chunked into 20-minute segments, people enjoyed the presentation more, they learned more, and they retained the information longer. Most of us give presentations that are often longer than 20 minutes. So if you have a presentation that's longer, see if you can build in some kind of change every 20 minutes. Maybe take a break, a short stretch break, or have an activity or an exercise. Number 2, multiple sensory channels compete. During a presentation, there are 2 sensory channels that are the most active, visual and auditory. Your audience is looking at you and listening to you. They're also possibly looking at slides you're showing. If the slides are visuals that are easy to understand, like photos or diagrams that add extra context and meaning, then having these multiple channels, audio and visual, are a positive experience for the audience. But if the slides are hard to read, if they're complicated, if there's a lot of text on them, then the visual channel is going to be distracting. The visual channel trumps auditory. We are very visual creatures. So if you have complicated information for people to read or look at, then they're not going to be listening to you anymore. So in particular, the sensory combination of slides that are filled with text and a speaker who is talking is just a bad combination. As soon as people are reading, they're not listening to you. You don't have to use slides in a presentation. Try putting your presentation together without any slides first and then decide if any of your points would be enhanced by the use of a visual example or illustration. You know what I call slides with a lot of text on them? Your notes. If you feel you need slides with text, it's probably because you feel you need notes, but you don't have to show the audience your notes. Number 3, what you say is only part of your message. The research in psychology over the last 15 years has revealed that people process information unconsciously and make very quick, like 1 second or less, unconscious decisions about other people. People react to not only your message, but your voice, your stance, your facial expressions, and your hand movements. There's a special field of study called paralinguistics, which studies how information is communicated besides the words that you say. For instance, I can say, I'd love to go to the store with you. Or I can say, I'd love to go to the store with you. In either case, I've said exactly the same words, but the paralinguistics of the message is totally different. You want to think about how you are saying what you're saying, not just the words. One of the best things that you can do is record a video of yourself giving a presentation, either a real one or just record a practice, and take a look at it and see what your body language and listen for what your paralinguistics are saying. Number 4, if you want people to act, you have to call them to action. Recently, I attended a fundraiser. The speaker got up and gave a pretty good speech. I think he could have used a speech coach, but at the end, he didn't have a call to action. He was trying to raise funds, but he didn't ask for the money at the end of the presentation. There were people walking around after the presentation with jars so you could donate, but no one had actually asked for the money. At the end of your presentation, be very specific about exactly what you want your audience to do. Number 5. People imitate your emotions and feel your feelings. People imitate what they see. If you are smiling, they tend to smile. If you're energetic, they'll be energetic. When you are passionate about your topic, your audience will be passionate. People like to watch and listen to someone who's animated and excited about what they're talking about. If your topic gets you excited, don't hold back. Show how you feel. That feeling will be contagious. So there you have it, 5 things you need to know about people in order to give a better presentation. If you're interested in more ideas like this, check out my book, 100 Things Every Presenter Needs to Know About People.
here. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kathleen. And what did you think about that? That was very interesting, huh? I know that that ask part at the end is very powerful. And if you are delivering a program on soil health, what do you want people to do with that information? Are you giving them something that they can do? Are you asking them to do soil testing? Are you asking them to, oh, what happened here?
Sorry, 1 second.
Are you asking them to do soil testing? Are you asking them to add compost to the soil to make it healthier? Are you asking them to protect it from any kind of damage or pesticide, not pesticide or contamination of some kind? The message that you leave your audience with is very powerful. They come to you for an expert opinion. They come to you for an expert piece of advice. And we want to make sure that when they leave, they take your advice and do something with it. Next, please. If you are using PowerPoint, these slides can help you to organize your thoughts and your delivery sequence. But it should not be a way to be your notes page, as I said in the video. Use your presentation notes. Some of you are lucky enough to have 2 screens you can work from. And it's not simple, but you can figure out how to do your slideshow, your presentation on one screen when you're doing Zoom, and your notes pages on another screen, or have your notes pages printed out and put in front of you. You can also use something called the clock method. And this is just a visual way of organizing your thoughts ahead of time. If you can present your information in a way that makes logical sense to you, then it will make logical sense as you present it into your listeners as well. The clock method is kind of a visual mind map to be able to move in logical sequence around a clock, mnemonics to try to organize your presentation. Overall, try to avoid using the slide as your presenter's notes because there's an overwhelming desire when you do that to read your slide. And that's a quick way to turn everybody off. Tell your story, have your information up there. And I also want to say as we go along here that you will see a number of things in the slideshow perhaps that perhaps contradict some of the advice that we're giving you today. And I was amused looking at the slideshow to find those things. But these are guidelines. None of us perfect, and we don't expect master gardeners to be perfect in their presentations. But these are guidelines that have been tested out and have been researched. Can you advance the slide, please? The State Master Gardener Office has created some assistance for you. One of those things is some templates that you can use. And you can download those templates from the State Master Gardener Office, and maybe some of you have already seen these. But there are also templates that are available through the Virginia Tech Communications Department, and the link is right there, as well as through the library system. And the library system and the communication system, these are all free, easy to access templates that you can use in any presentation. There are also things like backgrounds that you can access and download. And Kathleen, do we have backgrounds for Master Gardener presentations on the coordinator's website?
So in the chat box, I put the link to the templates, and I think everything we have falls under that. You'll just have to keep scrolling down, and there's a lot of resources.
All right. Next slide, please. So here's what one of the templates looks like, and all 3 of them have a cover slide, a title slide that you can put your unit name on, make some suggestions. It has the graphics on it. Has a pretty picture for a background. And then next slide, please. The templates also have a little bit of a promotion for the Master Gardener program and some basic information for your elevator speech. And all of us we should have elevator speeches at each of our Master Gardener units and help promote the word. Because if you're sitting in an elevator or a line at the grocery store and you have your Master Gardener tag on, it's a really simple thing for somebody to say, oh, well, what's extension? What are Master Gardeners? And to have that information out for every single presentation you make is a very powerful reminder. We have, in Arlington and Alexandria, we have found that our attendance at our programming, since we've gone to Zoom and online classes, has expanded by close to 500%. We used to think we were lucky to have 25 people show up for a class. Now we're having 125 people and 180 people. And it's an amazingly powerful thing for Extension to be able to hear this message in every single one of those presentations. So wear your badge with pride, right? Okay. Next, please. Okay, here's a title slide. Here's another title slide for an inside presentation. So it's like a sectional heading that you can use. And there's also ending slides in these presentation templates. Thank you. Next. So let's talk a little bit about fonts. And when you're using fonts on your PowerPoint presentations, whether you're doing them in person or in a small room, a big room, or online, it's the standard advice is to avoid any type of font that's smaller than 24 point. Now, I know that we all have done smaller font than that, especially when we're making attribution for photos and things like that, to avoid taking up the entire page. But if you want people to see and take in the information that you're presenting, you need to do it in big enough font that they can read it and that it doesn't clutter up the screen. You need to avoid changing your font throughout the presentation. And I've seen presentations where there were 3 different font types on the same page. And this is terribly, terribly distracting. And you should try to avoid that. Make sure you keep your font consistent throughout your presentation. And the best fonts are those that are sans serif. Now, we were laughing because we were laughing about what that means when we were preparing this presentation. So I added this in here today. Sans serif means that it doesn't have those little doodads on the letters. And you can see at the bottom, there's an N versus an N. You can see the difference between those 2 types of font. The one on the left is Nunito, and the one on the left is Montgomery or something like that, which I'll tell you in just a minute. But the sans serif font means without serif. And the types of font at the top there, the Calibri, Arial, Comic Sans, Nunito, those are examples of font types that do not have serif. The VCE fonts, I guess there's some official VCE fonts are Jost and Gothic. And if you look at the next slide, the next advanced slide, you can see what those types of fonts look like that do have serifs. Okay, Allegria, Breeze Serif, Cambria, Courier New, Meriwether, Georgia. Look, all those have those little tiny tags on the ends of the letters or sometimes in the middle of the letters. And they add a lot of black busyness to your screen that you just don't need. So if you can stay away from fonts that have these serifs, your presentation will be cleaner and easier to read. Thank you. Next slide. So I just broke my own rule. I have fonts here that are slightly smaller. I think they're 22 or 23 point size here. And I have all this writing on the page. Okay, rules for photo use. This is the next section on photo use. Use large, high resolution photos. What that means is if you are looking in Google for a photo and you go down to choose your photos, and you can choose large, medium, or small photos. Obviously, the large photos are going to be huge photo files that are going to increase the size of your file. But use them because the quality of the photos is so much better. And if you try to enlarge a photo which is small, it will become fuzzy and very poor quality. Similarly, on your presentation, don't use tiny pictures on your slides. If people are straining to see what the picture is of, they are not going to appreciate your message that you're trying to convey. If you use a visual, it should always support and enhance the message. Don't use things that are extraneous. Don't put pictures in just to decorate your page. If you are talking about apples and you want a picture of an apple tree in it, great. If you're doing apples and you want to put a picture of an apple pie, maybe that's less helpful. But make sure that your visuals support and enhance the message. Use borders. If you put multiple pictures in your slides on your slide, you can use a border around the picture simply by clicking on it and selecting Format Picture. But do not put a large border on it because that will be in itself distracting. But the pictures do help people to understand where the borders of the image are, and especially if you're joining images up, the border helps to delineate those different pictures and make them easier to read. Generally speaking, photos are preferable to clip art. And the clip art can be very effective, and we've used some examples in this presentation. The photo images, if you are trying to convey a scientific concept, are going to be much better to use than using clip art. You look more professional, you look more like you know what you're doing. Never use watermark images, and always, always give credit to the source of the images. If you crop the pictures, and by cropping, I mean, if you put a picture onto your PowerPoint and it is too big, you have a couple of options. You can shrink the picture simply by dragging the corners in from the sides. You can crop the picture simply by clicking on the picture and then moving the boundaries in so that the picture will be cropped. This is a whole presentation all by itself. But if you are going to crop a picture, never do it at the joint. That's the advice from professional photographers. In other words, you wouldn't cut somebody's head off in a crop. Don't cut their arms off either at the shoulder. Don't cut their wrists off at their hand. If you're going to crop a photo, do so in such a way that the body parts are present. And never mess with the original aspect ratio. What I mean by that is if you insert a photo into a slide and you want to adjust the size of it, you have several options. You can move the top line or the bottom line or the side lines in simply by grabbing that point and moving it. Or you can drag the corners. And if you drag the corners, this is far preferable because what happens is that will preserve the ratio of the original photo. If you move the top or the bottom lines, sometimes the picture will become distorted and the aspect ratio is changed. So never resize a photo in a presentation except by dragging the corners. If it's still too big, if it has information that you don't want to have on that image, use your cropping tool to remove what you don't need. The next point is about people looking at the slideshow. Now, this sounds a little funny, but if you post a picture of a person doing something in a presentation, make sure that the person is looking in at the slide as opposed to looking away from the slide. And this is a little bit of a psychological thing, but we are visual people, and when we look at a picture of somebody looking at something else, our eyes go to that side. So if you post a picture of somebody in a photo, make sure that it's oriented to the middle of the slide and not away from it. And finally, if you are using font colors and background colors, pay attention to the color of the font and make sure that it's not fluorescent orange and pink and other kinds of crazy colors against the background. Some people have real hard time distinguishing between different colors. And if you make the colors too close to each other, or if they're too extremely different, that's harder to read. So my next couple slides talk about giving credits to your photographer. And this is a task that you always have to do when you are choosing a photo from the internet. Next slide, please. Inga Haugen, who is the extraordinary librarian for Virginia Tech, one of them talented folks, has done some presentations, and they are stored at the, I think she did one back in June, didn't she, Kathleen? And this presentation is stored for your access. But she presented some resources for us. And one of them is about how to use and how to properly attribute photography credits. And the picture on the right is a picture that shows, I don't know what it is, an umbrella, a piece of an umbrella on a blue sky. And I chose that one because it was used in a presentation and it shows the sample attribution for this image. Ideally, our attribution should include the name of the photographer, the name of the work, and the source of the photo. Okay. Ideally, some of those should be hyperlinked so that anybody who is curious about the photo or wants to know more about it can click on that hyperlink in the presentation and find out more about it. Next slide, please. Here's a great example, and I want to commend you to go to Creative Commons if you have never done this before, and do a search on Creative Commons for photos. This is one of the free photo sources that is available to us. And what's really cool about Creative Commons is that if you find a photo you can use there is to the right of it on the screen when you select that photo, the proper attribution in the form that we need. And all you have to do is copy it and paste it into your presentation. So there we have the name of the presentation. We've got the source of the image, both hyperlinked, and the license under which it has been made available to the public. Okay. Next slide, please. There are some other free sources that you can use. Canva, Flickr, Pixabay. These are all public domain pictures that are free to the user. And it does not mean that you don't have to give the same attribution. It means that you don't have to worry about a royalty on those images, okay? In Google search, you can also find these kinds of photos, but you have to be careful about what you look for. In my Master Gardener program, we tell people if you want to find research-based information, we use the search engine in Google to allow people to put the title in and then put the word cite, S-I-T-E, a colon, edu. And that will return only sources that are from research-based sources, research-based institutions. You can do the same thing with a photograph. When you click to sort through the images, when you've searched for them using that cite colon edu tool, you will find images that are from universities and other research institutions. So, but you can help yourself out a little bit by when you're in the images section, to click on the tools. When you expand the filter menu, you will find that tab there. And under usage rights, which is on the far left, you will find the option to sort the images by their type of license that they have. And you can choose Creative Commons, or you can choose commercial use. Choose Creative Commons, okay? And that will take you to a site where the photos are free. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Kirsten. So
Before we get
ahead.
we get started, do we have time to do the poll questions? We have a couple of poll questions for you just to make sure you're still awake. And some of the information will be interesting to see.
All right, I just launched that. So everyone should have another box that popped up in front of their screen. So you should be able to click on answers within that.
So the first question is, what is the biggest challenge to you as a public education presenter? What's the scariest thing that you do? What is the hardest thing that you do? What is the thing that you struggle with the most? All right. Second question is, have you ever taught a class in the following settings? And there are 4 choices there. It makes a difference, doesn't it? I have master gardeners that much prefer to teach children because they don't feel like they're going to be so intimidated by the questions that they're going to get from kids. But this is great. This is great to see your answers. No, online children's education doesn't work all that well, but that's what we're doing with schools these days, isn't it? All right. Looks like everybody's had a chance to vote. Designing a presentation is the toughest challenge for most people. And of course, the experiences with adults at the community centers. So yes, all these tips and tricks will work to help you with these things, okay? Thank you. But while the poll's going away, I just want to say, think about how you might use polls in a presentation. You could use polls at the end to do evaluation. You can use polls at the beginning to find out what people are expecting to learn. You can use polls in the middle just to make people laugh and break up a serious topic. Take a moment in the chat box and write down what you have used polls for. And there's a question that just came up, is how do you initiate a poll in Zoom? We're going to prepare a fact sheet for you if there isn't one already, and put that out for you.
All right, thank you, Kirsten. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about giving some tips and tricks for giving effective presentations, as well as effective Zoom presentations. So we're going to start off first with Zoom presentations. First thing is that if you're using a camera, it should be at face level. So people should be looking straight at your face. They shouldn't be looking up at you, or they shouldn't be looking down at you. And then make sure you're sitting up straight, just like your mom probably taught you very early on. Make sure you're sitting up straight. I always have a problem with that. I'm a very relaxed sitter, so sometimes I have to remind myself when I'm giving a presentation to make sure that I have very good posture and I'm sitting up straight so people can actually see that. Beware of your speech habits. And again, we talked about how you can record your presentation as a trial so that you can kind of get an idea of what some of those speech habits are. I know for myself, one of my speech habits that I tend to do is to say a lot. So I'm always trying to make sure that I'm aware of that. And so you might hear maybe some pausing in my presentations as I'm trying to not say The other thing is try to see how your presentation is in a Zoom presentation versus a live presentation. I heard a recording back of one of my presentations, and for some reason I kept hearing a popping sound. And so I'm trying to make sure that when I'm starting my conversation, I'm not making a kind of a lip smacking popping sound. Also try to avoid background noises. In today's day and age, it's kind of hard to have maybe a completely quiet space around you as everybody is trying to telework from home, and there's multiple people in the house, there's dogs and pets flowing around or kids moving around. We've seen examples of that on TV where people have been giving interviews and then all of a sudden their kid runs into the room. But if you can, try to find a nice quiet place or space to give your presentation. So today I'm in my office and I've got my office door closed. So that's giving me an opportunity to have a very quiet space. It also gives people in the office, or if you're at home, a closed door gives people a clue that maybe they need to stay away and be quiet more at that time. Make sure you also turn off other computer applications that are not being used. Not only is it sometimes, sometimes things pop up if you're clicking on your screen, but they sometimes make noises. Have you been in a presentation before where somebody's mail minder keeps popping up and you keep hearing a ding, ding, because their email is blowing up and they're getting those messages? So make sure you turn off other computer applications that are not being used for your presentation. And then make sure you turn your cell phone off. A lot of people always have their phone next to them and near them. And if you're one of those folks that likes to have your cell phone on a ringer tone, it could be very distracting if all of a sudden your phone goes off while you're in the middle of your presentation. So for my example here in my office today, I've got my cell phone off as well as my work phone. I've got it on Do Not Disturb so that the phone will not ring during my presentation. And then smile. I think this was in the video that we watched, but make sure that you're smiling. Again, people can read how you are feeling and how you're giving your presentation. And if you're not smiling when you're giving your presentation, they can see that and sense that. Even if your video feed is not on, make sure that you're smiling. People can sense that smile in your presentation. So make sure you've got that smile on your face. Ashley, next slide, please. Some other tips and tricks. Make sure you have good lighting. You want to make sure that you as the presenter is well lit. You usually want to have a light coming towards you. You don't want to have something behind you, a backlighting. A lot of people are, again, doing this at home, and so they're sitting and they've got a big window that's behind them. And so what happens is that big window brings in a lot of light, and then it creates a halo and a shadow for the presenter. So try to make sure you've got good lighting, and if you got something in the background, maybe you need to close the curtains or move your background a little bit so that you don't have that light shining in on you. Use a microphone or a headset. So you'll notice that our presenters today all have headsets on with microphones. That's because those external microphones can capture your voice so much more clearly than the internal microphone can on your computer. So it's something that you can easily invest in. You don't necessarily have to have a complete headset like we do. Maybe you've got the lavalier type that goes around your neck. Maybe you've got Bluetooth ones that just go in your ear. But those external microphones are going to capture your voice, capture the sound so much more clearly than if you're just trying to rely on that internal microphone that is on your computer. Also think about your background. You want to make sure you got a non-distracting background behind you. And if you've been, most of people that were working with me earlier on in Extension, when we've been doing Zooms, would notice I had a big clutter behind me in my background. I had a bulletin board with paper stuck on it and stuff on top of my bookcase. And so I've gone and changed my background so that it's not distracting. It doesn't pull away from me. If you're looking at me without a PowerPoint, it doesn't distract you. So take a look behind you and see if there's some things behind you that are distracting that will take away from your presentation. One of those ways is to do a virtual background. Zoom does allow you to do a virtual background. And for some people, that's a lot easier than others. For me, my computer hardware doesn't allow me to really do a virtual background. I need a green screen behind me in order to do that. And so for some people that is an option, for others it's not. So just, again, try to have a non-distracting background behind you. We already mentioned, again, making sure that all other applications that you're not using for your presentation are off. Again, we don't want to hear those dinging sounds of things popping up on your screen, or if you're clicking on your presentation and your mouse moves around somewhere and you click on something else, something very distracting might pop up. Next slide, please. Make sure you have a backup plan, a contingency plan. And so Ashley talked about this briefly at the beginning of the presentation. Here's some ways to have a backup plan. Make sure you have printed copies of the presentation and speaker notes available to you as the presenter. That way, if something goes wrong, you've already got that presentation that you're able to give it. If the presentation doesn't work, you've got the speaker notes already in front of you so that you can go through it and still continue on with your presentation. You can also try having the host of the presentation have a copy of it, so that if there is a problem with your computer, that maybe the host can then run your presentation. So just like we were doing today with Ashley, Ashley's running the presentation, and so we're asking her to advance to the next slide. You can do that too, and that helps take a little bit of pressure off you as a presenter, that if you can't have your presentation running, then you feel like you just got to speak off the cuff or speak off your speaker notes. You can still have that presentation to enhance your topic by having the host of a session have that and run through it. Also, if you're using your microphone and it's not working correctly, you can dial into Zooms by phone and have that work also. So that's sometimes a problem that I've found with people using their computer microphone, is that it doesn't work very well. So you can go down by the mute button, and there's a little up arrow there, and you can select to dial in by phone, and it'll connect your phone call with your video feed. So it seems seamless. And then if you're having internet problems, sometimes you don't have enough bandwidth, you may want to try to turn off your video. So right now, as I'm speaking, I've got my video on, but that takes a lot of bandwidth. And so if you're having problems or people are saying that you're fading in or out or glitching, you may want to try to turn your video off so that the only thing that's moving then is your presentation. And that will help with some of your bandwidth issues. Next slide, please. Some other general tips and tricks for presentations. Make sure when you're telling stories or jokes that they're relatable and that they have context to your presentation. Use personal experiences. That helps make things a little bit more relatable. So as we've talked through our presentation, I think we've all shared some personal experiences with you. Again, I gave an example of the background behind me. It helps make it seem more relatable and more interesting to people. Be aware though that you're not offending people. So make sure that your jokes are politically correct to say, and that they're not going to offend people. You can use polls in Zoom, and here's a link here, and I think I might have seen somebody pop that up in chat, that you can use polls. Again, that could be a great way to break up a presentation. In that video we listened to that said break things up into 20-minute chunks. And so that might be a way to break things up, is to do a Zoom poll and get some different feedback from people. If you're ready to move on to another topic, maybe that's a way to find out what some prior knowledge is before you move on to the next subject, so that you can make sure that you're enhancing it with more in-depth information if they don't know a lot, or you gloss over it a little bit more if they've already got some good background information about the subject that you're doing. Or you could just make it be a fun poll. You know, what is the weather outside your window, or what's your favorite plant that you're growing right now, or what's the plant you've killed the most? Just some interesting ways to break it up. So we've got that information on the screen there, and I think again it might have been in that chat there for you to look at before. And then always make sure you explain how you're going to allow participants to ask questions. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you let them know up front how you plan on answering questions. Sometimes you don't mind people asking questions throughout the session, but that can also be very distracting for you as a speaker. It can derail your train of thought. It could take you off topic a lot. So maybe you want to break up your question and answer sessions and limit how people ask questions. And maybe that's part of your 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, you're going to stop and say, what are your questions so far? Or for Zoom's, maybe you're going to say, we're going to do questions only at the end so that you can keep track of what's going on. and not be derailed with those questions or having the chat pop up while you're doing presentations. For Zoom sessions, I always like to have a host read the questions in the chat box. That way, if the presentation is being recorded, those questions are then being captured and as being part of the presentation. Also, having the host read the questions or somebody else read the questions to the speaker allows the speaker to focus on answering the question. They're not having to try to do too many things at once. They're not trying to answer the question. They're not trying to roll through the chat and try to find the next question and think about that next answer. Or maybe they're trying to answer a question in the chat while they're answering a question live. So it's great to have a host read the questions out loud for a Zoom session. Next slide, please. Again, we mentioned about breaking the presentation up into 20-minute segments to break up that presentation rather than necessarily a full hour long. Could be, again, the use of different techniques that we've mentioned throughout this presentation. If you are doing a live presentation, in-person presentation, you could also, instead of just relying on your PowerPoint, you could use paper pads or an easel or a blackboard to maybe illustrate a point, or that you can do as a poll. Maybe you've got some preloaded questions already written on a paper pad. And so instead of in Zoom right now, like we've added that poll feature, maybe you go over and you uncover on your pad that top question, that first question, so everybody can see that. And that way it kind of breaks up your presentation. And that you can do that instead of it being a slide on your slide presentation. Again, it kind of breaks up that presentation so that people are paying attention a little bit more. If you are using printed handouts in a live presentation, there's a couple things you need to think about. If it's something that is going to help improve your presentation at that moment, maybe it's a diagram that you want them to see at that moment, that's a great use of a handout. But if you're giving out your slide presentation for them for reference, don't ever give it out to them at the very beginning. Don't ever give that out at the very beginning. What's going to happen is, and you've probably been guilty of it yourself because I've done it too, as soon as that slide handout comes, what are you doing? You're looking through the slide presentation. You're looking to see what they're going to talk about. You're looking to see what the next slide's going to be. So your focus is not necessarily on the presentation, it's on that handout. So don't give out handouts before the presentation or during the presentation unless it's going to be applicable at that very moment. And remember, in your PowerPoint presentation, hyperlinks look a lot cleaner, but you may find that it's better to put the actual link in the presentation so that afterwards people can know what that link is. So if you are giving a PDF of your handout and all you have in there is a hyperlink, how are they supposed to know where they're supposed to go to find that information? They can't click on it. It's on a piece of paper. So it might be that you need to put out the whole link in your document so that they can access it later. Or if you like the cleaner look of hyperlinks, then maybe you give a reference page at the end that has all the hyperlinks spelt out, listed out, so that it doesn't then take away from your presentation, but then they can still have access to it afterwards. Next slide, please. So we've given up our contact information. So here's how you can reach the three of us if you have any further questions about the presentation that we've done today. And then I think there's going to be one more slide afterwards, which we can put up in a few minutes, that does have links to some of the things that we referenced in the program here. So Kathleen, I think we're ready to turn it back over to you for question and answers.
Wonderful. We've had a lot of really great questions come in. So I think this has sparked a lot of good thinking from our participants and about how they can use all of the information that you have all shared the last hour with them in their own teaching and engaging the public. So thank you all for sharing your knowledge and your expertise with us. The first question that we had come in was, do you need to stick to universal fonts if you're moving from a Mac to a PC? Can you speak to universal font use?
Well, I think that the important thing is to be consistent throughout your presentations, no matter what format it's in. I suggested using sans serif fonts. I also suggested the other key component, which is not having a bunch of different fonts in a single presentation, and especially not having different fonts on a particular slide. So that's more important than the concerns that you have by switching from one from Mac to a PC.
All right. The next question is, how could you talk with another volunteer who didn't listen to this and kind of hear about making sure your notes aren't actually what's on your screen, what your students are listening to? So how, for someone who puts a lot of text on their slides, how could you coach a fellow volunteer to kind of move away from that in a tactful way?
For me, I would think that one of the ways that you can possibly do that is to show them by example. Show them, maybe take one of their slides and redo it for them, and show them how the information is a lot more easier to read. It's easier to understand. Show them how to use speaker notes too. Maybe they aren't aware that you have speaker notes available to them and how to use that. So that might be a teaching opportunity for you to show them how to use that function of PowerPoint, and then that will allow them to clean up their slides a lot better.
I'm going to add in that you know, I'm guilty of this myself. You know, that if you feel like you have to have a lot of information on the page, it's because you feel like you need that information as your notes pages, and you need to be able to remember what you're going to talk about next. And so the use of a double screen, if you're doing Zoom presentations, the use of the speaker notes, as Ed mentioned, but also the visualization exercise that I talked about with using the mind map can help many people to understand, you know, to kind of give visual clues without putting a whole bunch of text on the page.
Great, thank you both for that. Let's see. A comment here. So some images you find and use in presentations might not be available at that linked site the next year. And then there's universities who might rearrange websites and links might be broken. So the comment is that if you're using the same presentation over and over, or maybe multiple years, to just go back and double check and make sure all the links are there, that all of the photo credits are still accurate and all of that. I think that's a really great comment, just because the internet is ever changing and some of those links do break, and there's a lot of new information out there.
I just want to say something about that too, which is that many times, because of what we do, we're repeating similar kinds of topics from year to year. You know, you're going to have a composting class this year. You know you're going to have a composting class next year. And some of your audience is going to also come back and view that again. And it may be more fun, not only for the presenters, but also for the viewers, if you change up your presentations from year to year. And I believe that they should be viewed. They should be reviewed every year to make sure you haven't excluded information, make sure that any of your graphics haven't become corrupted for any reason, and that your resources are up to date.
Great, thanks for that, Kirsten. So for someone who, for how do participants ask questions in a classroom setting when the speaker is giving the Zoom presentation remotely? So let's say you're in a Master Gardener training and all of your Master Gardeners are in one room, but you're Zooming in your presenter. So what is the best way to make sure that your presenter can actually hear and engage with your students in the class?
Well, that's going to be happening a lot to all of us, you know, with Master Gardener training. We've done this before by having questions relayed to the speaker by a classroom facilitator with a microphone. And we've also passed microphones around. That's one way to do it. Anybody else have another way?
Yeah, we've done that too, where people have gone up to the laptop and asked the question. We've also provided index cards and have people write their questions down and then have a facilitator at the computer relaying those questions to the presenter.
Great ideas. Thank you. We had another Master Gardener. I think this one might be that I can actually address. So asking if Zoom is available for Extension Master Gardeners to use. And this is a yes, actually. So we have been able to work out with VCE and Virginia Tech that a certain number of volunteers within each unit can get sponsored PIDs. So the like mine is Read KA. And so that would allow Virginia Tech Zoom access. And so you wouldn't have to have the free account that would stick you to that 40-minute limit, nor would you have to pay for your own account. So as long as you're for Master Gardener related activities, this is something that we can set up. If you contact me, again, my email is readka@et.edu. I can work with your agent in getting that set up. And it has been working quite well, and the process has been going quite quickly, actually, which has been a nice surprise. And then another question that came in is, would you be willing to share a PDF copy of your slides that we could post alongside the recording of today's session?
That, and I'd like to go through and call out some of the resources that some of the folks have shared in the chat box and put that into a separate resources file, that, a document that we can send out to everybody.
I think that's a great idea as well, Kirsten, and we can include that kind of with all of the other resources, the 2 documents I sent out yesterday that you shared with me, the video that was shared early on in the presentation that was really great, along with some of these other things. So alongside, yes, those documents. So you would be willing to share a PDF of the presentation itself as well?
Yes.
Great. All right. It looks like I think I caught all of the questions in the chat box. There's a few other comments that are really great. To cite any facts that are used. And this is one that we can include in that resource document. So you can plug in the information and the site gives you a correct form for citation, which is really great. And a couple comments about PDF slides and using without background color, so it's easier for people to take notes, and you don't use as much printer ink, which is also quite helpful. So thanks everyone for the comments that have come through.
I have a question for all of you. Is anybody using polls at the end of a presentation, an online presentation, to collect evaluation data? And is there anything that would be we do send out emails after the fact to everybody who pre-registered for a program to collect the evaluation. But it'd be really great to hear from Kathleen and whether or not that's permitted to use at the point of sale, so to speak, or if any of you are using those. Somebody's pointed out in the chat box that Penn State Extension has a great evaluation tool at the end of every presentation. I think that's a great way to collect data right away.
There's also, if this is a Zoom meeting, in a Zoom webinar, there is a exit feature that allows them to launch with a document or follow-up, but that's in the webinar feature versus this is a meeting feature.
I don't know the answer to the question that was just put up about whether or not polling is available in individual Zoom accounts as opposed to commercial Zoom accounts. There we go.
All right, if there's any other questions, feel free to type those into the chat box before we wrap everything up. Is there anything else that any of you, our presenters today, are planning or sharing, or is this the end?
That's the end.
Wonderful.
I was going to say that some of our presenters, one of the feedback that we've gotten from people who have attended our online presentations, which are conducted every Friday morning, virtual classroom. You can access them through the mgnv.org website, Master Gardeners of Northern Virginia. The feedback we've gotten from the presenters is they love making presentations on Zoom. And the feedback we've gotten from participants is we love attending online presentations because we can eat our breakfast while we're watching, we can drink our coffee, we don't have to get dressed, we don't have to worry about a parking place, and we don't have to worry about the weather. So I know that online Zoom or other types of online meeting platforms are going to become a regular part of our public education outreach programming. It's not going to ever completely replace what we do, but certainly we're not going to discard, you know, some day in the future when we are allowed to have in-person classroom style learning again, we're certainly not going to discard all of our online options.
Yeah, same here in Henrico, Kirsten, because as you mentioned, increase in attendance in your online versus your in-person, same thing for us. We would be lucky to have between 5 and 10 people at a library program, but our library programs now are over 150 participants for that program. So it's amazing the reach that we've gotten. And we've gathered zip code information, and we're not just reaching people that are in our county. We're also not reaching people that are just in our state. We've been reaching people from coast to coast, which has been great.
Right. But we've even had feedback from somebody in England who came across one of our public education classes. But the other thing I want to say is one of the bottlenecks for us is the requirement to do closed captioning and the editing that goes into preparing the recordings. And we record everything that we teach, and we put that up into a library on the Master Gardeners website of presentations that have been closed captioned, they've been edited, and they're ready to download. We do capture some demographic data on the folks that access those resources, and but it's been a very interesting year to try all these new things out and to learn so much about how to get around the limitations of the current situation.
Yeah, that is totally true. All of our Virginia Cooperative Extension Culpeper programs we're putting on we have a YouTube channel now. So if you search in YouTube, it's Virginia Cooperative Extension Culpeper Unit. And that's where all of our continuing education gardening classes have been placed. And I just echo what everything that Kirsten and Ed have been saying. Our outreach has been amazing. Kentucky, we've had folks from Kentucky attend. We actually have people from Mexico attend on a couple presentations. So yeah, it's amazing how this is working out this year.
All right. Thank you all so much for sharing all the information today, and also a bit about how kind of being able to present on a virtual platform has kind of changed your numbers and your demographics and your reach. I think we're seeing the same thing from the state office. And I mean, just today we had 95 people join us today for this leadership development series, which is definitely the most that we've ever had for one of these. So it's really great to see how many Master Gardeners are taking the time to join into these sessions and listen to all of our wonderful presenters. So I appreciate all of you as speakers and all of our Master Gardeners who joined us today. Again, the recording and the resource lists and a PDF of the slides will be posted to our leadership development page within the next few days. Thank you all for joining, and we will see you next week for our final leadership development series. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.